All right, so this is real absinthe. It's from a private distillery. I believe some people might even call it homebrew. I love absinthe. It's actually my favorite drink. Used to be Jaeger, and now it's absinthe. Now you're supposed to drink absinthe with water and with sugar. But this is I can do a shot here. Make it a big shot. And by the way, in case you're wondering, yes, you did click on the corrected video. Yes, the title is correct, but I got to prepare. Okay. Very good bottle of absinthe, by the way. Mazel tov. Okay, so in this video, I am going to be talking about Debra Soh's book, The End of Gender. Yeah, because that should go on this channel. So, The End of Gender by Debra Soh. A review and discussion. I had several friends tell me not to review this book, that it was too dangerous and too controversial a topic. And these were straight male friends. I then asked my trans, feminist, bisexual, and lesbian friends about it, and each one of them said that they hadn't even heard of the book before. What does that say? That married Christian men knew about this book, but a bevy of LGBTQ people did not? I honestly can't remember how I heard about this book. I think I was searching for a different book titled Why Gender Matters. As I listened to Stitch and Adam Friended most Sundays during my grocery shopping, and I wanted to know what they were arguing about. But regardless, once I did find this book and I saw the controversy around it, I was immediately intrigued. Now, for those that think this is an odd book to review on my channel, as I discuss biblical content, just know that I do so from a literary and philosophical approach, not from an apologetic method. Also, I have been an observer and passive consumer of sex-positive theory and sex research since I was 12, no joke. And I was a major consumer of Tristan Taormino, Violet Blue, Janet Harding, and Cunning Minx, among other cutting-edge feminists from the late 90s and early 2000s. And this is something I will come back to later in this review. It is relevant. But I do like to check in and keep up with feminist theory from time to time. But I will not be looking at this book through either a sex-positive or a feminist lens in this video, nor through a Christian or patriarchal perspective. Neither will I be debating the data or the author's conclusions, but I will instead look at this book as a journalistic endeavor of editorial opinion, asking the question of, is this worth reading? Not, do I agree or disagree with the author's claims? As I read many things that don't affirm my worldview, from Wiccan and Islamic works to Marxist and radical feminist think pieces that I don't agree with, but I am open to understanding. I know I'm drinking absinthe in this one, but the other one that I really love is Glenlivet. I love single malt scotch. My dad was a blended whiskey kind of guy. I am a single malt kind of guy. I like Glenlivet. This might be a scotch kind of day. All right, let's continue on. So let's talk about the author. She is a Malaysian Chinese Canadian. Her name is Debra Soh. She holds a doctorate of philosophy in psychology from York University in Toronto. She received the Michael Smith Foreign Research Award in the social studies and humanities. And she has written for Quillette, the Globe and Mail, New York Magazine, Playboy, the Los Angeles Times, and the Wall Street Journal. The structure of the book is broken up into chapters, each tackling a different myth about gender, human sexuality, or a sub-issue related to such a myth. Each chapter or section really does come off as a different magazine article, making the book read like a collection of shorter think pieces, and it shows that her writing has adapted from a scholarly style to that of the pop science magazine style that she is railing against in this work. Her writing is catchy. Her evidence is full of secondhand anecdotes and emotional appeal, all while giving lip service to the altar of data and scientific method over feelings. Let's talk about the high points of her story, of her book. Her strongest points is her claim that human gametes only come in binary, sperm and ovum. And the quality of their expression doesn't change that fact. This blew me away and made me both reconsider and reaffirm my own understanding of biology and biological evolution and evolutionary biology. This is a powerful statement, and when she backs up this claim with data, research, findings, and references, her book is on fire. But that does bring us to the low points. The more personal and relatable parts of this book are the parts that brought up for me powerful memories and stirred the questions that I would like to ask her directly in response to her claims, are where the book actually falters. She relies far too much on sloganeering and on the repeating of mantras. Her personal opinions are stuck in the feminist and sex-positive theories and dogmas of 20 years ago. She is very clear of her love and her desire to protect her male gay friends she spent so much time at gay clubs with during that era. An era I too remember fondly as a former goth, whom spent many nights at gay clubs with my weirdo friends when we were all underage and we were drinking all the time. I'm sure she'll say she too was blown away by Fight Club and The Matrix. And maybe she, like me, even did some backyard sparring or fighting, given her love for MMA and Taekwondo, a love I also share. But while I and other masculine men are endeared by this tangent she spins, I think it shows one of the weaknesses and problems with her book. She is addressing the wrong audience. And while she is giving lip service affirming the non-woke leftists and liberals, it comes off as false and empty, saying all the right things not to get canceled. Not because she still believes in those progressive utopian ideals, but because she wants to avoid the fallout for her ideas. The worst parts of her book, which there aren't many of, but those few low points come off as placating the right, saying in coded speak something like, I agree that what the woke progressives and SJWs want is a step too far, but when the pendulum swings back, please don't throw away gay rights with this trash. That's what it sounds like she's actually saying. It is evident by the marketing that she is aiming this book at people whom already potentially agree with her, promoting this book on conservative and right-wing media, and saying to them mostly what they want to hear. You are correct. Free speech does matter, etc. But then, Trojan horse style, battering the host or pundit with, but born this way won the argument when we were enemies. I'm not conceding that ground now that I'm on your side. That is my one clear complaint about her book. She is playing to her audience instead of proving her claims to her critics. It's almost pandering in some passages. The other problem, though this is more with her points and less with the book itself, is that Dr. Soh is stuck defending hard-fought ground from ideological and social issues dating 20 years ago. Her book would have been groundbreaking back then, when her and I were part of these counterculture groups. But I am as far from whom I was then as she is to the groups she should be addressing with this book, but is not. Honestly, I really think I should have gone with the Gwen Levitt, or possibly some Doors. Is it Doors? I never know how to pronounce this. This is Doors, right? That's how you pronounce that. Anyway, yeah. Now for my review and my opinion. While it may seem from this review so far that the negatives far outweigh the positives, that is not the case at all. This book is well written, entertaining, and informative. But the hard, concrete data, the talking points with the most weight, could be covered in a 7-minute video. I know, because while doing research for this video, I've seen her do it. But the pitfalls of this book, though few, have depths to them that are far-reaching and for some unfathomable. The best parts of her book could be a 10-page pamphlet. That is both a compliment and a complaint. She needed to cite and show more hard data, and she needed to defend and justify the data she presented, while her dismissals of newer data as biased and activist-driven were unsubstantiated, based on the fears of those in academia, not on the actions of the activists whom she is warning the world against. She sounds like an atheist railing against the faith they once belonged to, and not like a scientist coldly and stoically presenting the data. Now let's move on to the discussion. First, let's talk about her critics. After reading her book, I decided to search out her interviews and YouTube content, just to learn more about her and see if what she was saying in her book reflected her public persona. I came across 4 strong dissenters. The strongest counter to her point of view came from Dr. Drew. Yes, that Dr. Drew. When talking to most hosts or interviewers who know less about sex research than she does, they will ask her something about the hard data or the research methods behind the data that she cites. And she'll say something like, that would be better answered at a different time, as I have a lot more studies that I can reference that we wouldn't have time to get into here. Besides, it's all really technical and dry and would bore you and your audience. And that answer has worked until she got on with Dr. Drew, as he too is a sex doctor and a researcher, though from a different field than herself. He asked her about the research, which he was familiar with, and with the data that he was familiar with, and he used technical language to demonstrate that it was safe for her to speak to him in jargon and medical terms. And she stammered, stuttered, and could not recall, saying she would have to look at the research again to answer him. Then he moved on. But for the rest of the interview, she did not recover her position as an expert or an authority on the topic she was there to speak on. Instead, she had to defer to Dr. Drew when his daughter asked a question or spoke an ideological-laden comment. Dr. Drew, who has been on the other side of this debate, when he took on James White, he both exposed James White's homophobia and demolished James White's argument with hard science. Now he brings on Dr. Soh as one of her defenders, but ended up shedding some light on her blind spots. Both Dr. Drew and Dr. Soh are vehemently against anti-scientism and anti-rationalism, but Dr. Soh was not able to hold her own that day, until toward the end maybe. That is not to say that the information that she presents is bad or that her data is wrong. Another of her critics a transgendered woman, expresses this very well. Where for her, the problem with Dr. Soh's statements were not her science, but the social implications of her non-scientific statements. And then there were her critics whom either did not understand the argument or who were simply talking past her. These individuals didn't seem to understand that she wasn't speaking of philosophy or sociology. They did not seem to understand that Dr. Soh is not concerned with, nor is she addressing the philosophical nor social implications of biological science, of biological evolution, of evolutionary science, but that she was simply asking that we must respect the science, the scientific method, and when one isn't speaking scientifically, they should make that very clear. Well, these two individuals didn't even seem to understand the difference in relevance between the scientific and common use definitions of terms. Let's talk about her supporters now. Her supporters and allies are not doing her any favors either. Abigail Shire is a low-rent Dr. Soh. Just like how Armageddon and Deep Impact are really the same movie, or like how those two volcano movies came out at the same time, same thing here. Neither see themselves as extremists, but they have the same problem a deli butcher has talking to a vegan. While you or I might think that the butcher is a great man, I doubt our opinion of him matters much to the vegan community. And then there is good old Joe Rogan, whom, while popular, his support of her doesn't lend any credibility to her claims. It is just this popular dude likes this person and respects her research. Cool, I guess. And then there is my homie, Ben Shapiro. If you want to be hated by the left, be promoted by this guy. I like Ben. I listen to his show. I don't watch Joe Rogan. I do watch Ben Shapiro. But that tells you more about what I like to listen to during my lunch breaks and less about whether or not Dr. Soh's research should hold any weight or not. Dr. Soh needs critical academics to step up and say that what she is saying is true, or at least correct. Otherwise, it is just her saying. The only reason they won't say publicly that they support me is because they're scared. But privately and secretly, they know I'm right and tell me so. That holds no weight. Let's talk about the implications of her work. If her work is an accurate portrayal of the current state of academia, science, and secular scholarly research, then this book is the most powerful and most important harbinger since that bird whom didn't return to the ark because it found land. But if her information is faulty or false, then she is a hate monger and grifter, exploiting conservatives for their money and support. This book, as her work on its own, seems more counter-narrative, designed to push against the progressive woke agenda than it does hard science. What is not science in this book is her opinion on leaving academia, modern censorship, and the rise of anti-scientism on the progressive left, which in her opinion mirrors the anti-scientism of the past on the conservative right. If she is correct, then lawsuits will abound, devastating the medical and academic and psychological fields within 20 years. If she is wrong, she is an alarmist who will be forgotten, like those whom thought women shouldn't have suffrage back in the 1920s. All right, to quote Sit Snap. All right, my guys, what'd you think? Oh boy. Okay, so like I said, I reached out to almost every single LGBTQ friend that I have. None of them knew anything about this book. Maybe later on this week or next week, whenever this video posts, I will have a discussion with someone online about this book, maybe I'll just leave it as it is and not touch it again. I don't know. Personally, I think you should read this book. I do think it is a 5 out of 5 as it comes to books, as it comes to popular science entertainment. The validity of her research, I cannot attest to. I know that many of her statistics I can find on Pew. I know that a lot of her research seems to be substantiated by other psychologists and sociologists in Canada. And I know that the things that she's saying coincides with feminist theory and feminist arguments that I'm familiar with back from the late 1990s. There is nothing from current academia that I can find to back her up. I can find stuff from when I was into these topics that agree with her. But current research seems to say differently. Again, I am not going to debate her content. I don't want to go there on this channel. As far as I'm concerned, this review is done. If you liked it, please comment down below that you liked it, because I'm taking a chance even talking about this book. For those that don't know, I will be changing the way that I do my channel soon. This is not part of that. I've been doing book reviews from the beginning. I plan to keep doing book reviews. But this book, the reason why I wanted to review it is because it was darn interesting. I finished it in less than a week. I probably could have finished it in 3 days, but I had to keep on going over things that she said over and over again and like really understand what she was saying. It was highly interesting, highly entertaining, but I don't know if it was accurate at all. I can read a book about Wiccanism and Islam, and I can read a book about ancient Greek mythology and find it really interesting. That doesn't mean I agree with it, and that doesn't mean that what they're claiming is true. I don't know if what she's claiming is true, and I am not prepared to make a claim supporting her in that way. I will say that you should read this book, because I do think this book is important, and I do think this book is interesting. I don't think you should be scared of ideas. Good friends of mine who I love dearly, who are in the LGBTQ community, who I would like them to speak on this, because, you know, clear reasons. Anyway, peace, like, and subscribe. I'll talk to you all later. If I post this, yeesh.